Did you know that you can use astrology to find the best places to live, travel, work, find love, support your family, and more? I did not know this, and once I discovered astrocartography, I was obsessed. We're going to be talking about astrocartography today, and I have a special guest joining me. This is a branch of astrology, and we're going to be breaking down just the very basics of it, what it is, how to get into it, and how you can start understanding the basics of it in case you want to learn it further, dive into it, or get an astrocartography reading yourself. So I wanted to bring on a special guest today, an astrocartographer who knows a lot about this, who can speak to this and help walk us through this. So I'm gonna bring up Jennifer so she can introduce herself. Hello everyone, and welcome Jennifer. I'm so excited to have you here. Jennifer is joining us all the way from Italy, which I'm really jealous of, by the way, that she escaped the US and she's over there and I'm not. She's living the new American dream, which is to escape.
But I'm here. Thank you, Lauren, for having me. So yes, Jennifer Canhos. I am an astrologer. I specialize in locational astrology and astrocartography, which is the astrology of place and how our location can affect us. My website is globalcitizenastrology.com. And I've been doing this so I've been an astrologer pretty much for as long as I can. Like, I've been doing it since I was a kid, like reading books. Like, I was always into this. Astrocartography, I picked up, I want to say it was about, at this point, 4 years ago. Since it is a fairly new niche, right? And as soon as I did find it, I was like, okay, I have to do this for a living because so much of my life makes sense now that I have this map, this literal map that shows like the reflection of the stories of the places that I've been.
I actually reached out to Jennifer for a reading for myself because I wanted to get an astrocartography reading because I was thinking about moving. And so she did a reading for me and it was fantastic. And then we started talking about doing this video. So I want to first ask Jen to just introduce to us, like, what is astrocartography for those of us who don't know?
So astrocartography essentially can be called the astrology of place, right? So there was a man by the name of Jim Lewis in the 1970s. He created this mapping system, right, that allowed us to see where each planet was going to be on an angle at the exact time of your birth, right? And it is interesting because it is a newer niche, a newer form of astrology, right? Astrology as we know it with the natal chart, that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. When you were born, right, your natal chart is essentially your life, right? Now, the interesting thing, the cool thing about astrocartography and locational astrology is now, you know, people can go, you can get on a plane one day and then the next day you can be on the opposite side of the world in no time, right? You didn't used to be able to do that. So it's sort of this like, it's interesting because it's really combining, you know, everyone talks about like quantum leaping and that type of thing these days. And it's sort of this new form of astrology that's allowing you to kind of quantum leap into these different archetypes that already exist within your birth chart and already exist there, right? Because you have Mercury is somewhere in your chart doing something, right? Now, what astrocartography tells us is that you can, when you relocate to another location, Mercury is going to be doing something else in your birth chart.
It shows you where in the world different planetary energies are strongest for you. And this is based on where the planets were rising or setting at the time of your birth. So for astrocartography, we have to use our birth chart in order to cast this map. And I think a lot of people don't really quite understand the mechanics of what a birth chart actually is. And essentially, it is the map of a sky, correct?
Yeah, it's a snapshot of the cosmos at the exact moment of your birth, right? Over the location where you were born. And now if you're taking into context astrocartography, it's a snapshot of the cosmos at your birth over the entire globe.
Usually people pull this up sometimes on their own online and they just get, like you said, super overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's a ton of lines on that chart. What are these lines?
So those lines are showing exactly where the planets were conjunct the angles. Conjunct, right? Together, close to, on top of, with. So the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven, right? The ascendant represents you, yourself, your physical vitality, ego identity. The IC is your home, inner world, private life, ancestry. The descendant is your relationships and partnerships, and the MC midhaven is your career, public reputation, visibility, your legacy, right? So what you're seeing is every place in the world that each planet was conjunct that specific angle when you were born. You can draw in what does the planet represent along with what does the angle represent. That's what you're seeing when you're looking at the map, right? And so that being said, you're going to have, each planet is going to have 4 of those lines, right? Because you're going to have a sun ascendant, a sun IC, a sun descendant, and then a sun midhaven somewhere on the globe, right?
Let's go over each of the planets individually, Jen.
Yeah, so the sun is going to be your ego, your identity, your vitality, your life force, right? The moon is going to be your emotional world, your inner world, your connections with others, and your nurturing, right? Taking care of others, being taken care of. Venus is going to be love, art, beauty, connections, relationships, romance. Mercury is going to be your communication, right? Mercury, communication pretty much in all of its forms, intellect, thought processes, right? Writing, reading, publishing, speaking, broadcasting. Mars is going to be action, energy, drive, athleticism a lot of times. It can be aggressive, right? So depending on the condition of Mars in your chart, some people can have a difficult time on a Mars line. Jupiter, right? Jupiter lines are a lot of people's favorites, right? That's abundance, prosperity, right? Expansion. Once again, depends on Jupiter in your chart, but Jupiter for the most part is the greater benefic. It is a prosperous line to be on. It is a prosperous planet. It brings good things. Saturn is going to be more cold, rigid, disciplined, structure, routine, stability, right? It does have good, there's good that comes with Saturn, right? Stability. Surprisingly, a lot of people actually do want to be sometimes on their Saturn lines, especially if they have a well-placed Saturn, right? If things have been chaotic and they want more stabilized, lives, Saturn lines are good. Sometimes though, depending on the condition of Saturn can be restrictive, right? So sometimes Saturn lines can be a little bit difficult for some people. Yeah. Uranus is going to be very electric, exciting, innovative, right? Technology, Uranus lines, and just Uranus in general, right? People that have it prevalent in the chart, they do tend to work in tech in one way or another, right? Neptune, right? Neptune is very spiritual. It can be a little foggy, a little hazy, confusing. It can have that. It's kind of like the shadow side of it. But Neptune can also be considered like a higher octave of Venus in some ways, right? There's a very strong connection to art and beauty, right? And very spiritual, right? Neptune is a very spiritual planet. So very much about like being connected to the divine and lost in the divine. That's why it can be kind of foggy and hazy. Like once again, it depends on what you're looking for, right? If you are a spiritual person and you do spiritual work, a Neptune line can be really good for you. If you don't have that in your scope of reality, it might be not the best place to go. Pluto is another one that can kind of have like a tricky reputation, right? It's because it's really intense, right? It's death, transformation, rebirth, right? It's a Pluto line can kind of cause a shedding of one layer of skin and then, regrowth and rebuilding another, right? Like people come back from their Pluto lines like totally transformed, right? Because it's really about, Pluto's about going down into the underworld, figuring it out, doing the shadow work and coming back with information or healing or, that type of, it's that type of energy.
So the theory is when you move closer to these lines, you activate the stories of these lines. You can use that to find a new home, to travel, to align it with a work trip, to get out of an area that you don't like, to understand where you're living a little bit more, to buy a property.
So a Venus descendant line, you're going to be activating relationships in the context of Venus, right? Because the descendant is relationships, and then Venus, of course, love, art, beauty, relationships, right? Because relationships do fall under Venus. So a Venus descendant line is typically very lovely for relationships. Some people are looking for a peaceful, tranquil home life, to put down roots, start a family. Some people are looking for career optimization, right? So they were looking at MC lines. A lot of people, they are looking to find someone, right? So they're looking at those descendant lines. So a cool way. So the way to find your soulmate line, you look where find your Venus in your birth chart, right? So this is my birth chart, and my Venus is here at 15 degrees of Leo in the 11th house, right? Now, you're going to first locate your Venus, and then second after that, you're going to locate what is the planetary ruler of your Venus sign. If you're not familiar with planetary rulership, you can easily look it up, right? Easily Google, like, what is the ruler of such and such sign, wherever your Venus is, right? So for Leo, the ruler of Leo is the sun, right? So for this example, it would be a sun descendant line, right? Now my sun descendant line is going through Italy. Here's the descendant line. It curves, right? But it does go through Italy. It is with an orb of the nation where my husband was born, where he grew up partially. And you don't have to go to these lines to meet them, right? We met in Miami, where we both partly grew up. And I didn't even know about this when I met him, right? And that happens, that's common. I didn't even know about this and this technique.
We've talked quite a bit about a relocated chart. So what is that exactly?
You're literally just looking at the birth chart for that part of the world when you were born in another part of the world, right? So like, let's say, for example, I was born 1:14 p.m. in Chicago, Illinois. My relocated chart for Italy is going to be the time it was in Italy when I was born in Chicago, which is like 8 something p.m., right? And basically all of your planets are going to stay in the same sign. They're all going to be making, for the most part, the same aspects to each other, but the houses that they're in are going to shift, right? So there's an analogy that I really love to use, and it's an analogy of your room, right? And let's say you have this room, right? And that's you and your birth chart and your life. It's you, this room, right? And it's full of things that you've always had, that you'll always have. And you can't bring anything new into the room, right? And you can't take anything out of the room. But what you can do is you can rearrange the room. And that's what you're doing with astrocartography. You're rearranging the room. So like, let's say you have a desk and it's cluttered and it's messy and you can't get inspired and you're not doing the work you want to do, right? And you clean up and you rearrange your room, you move the desk to where it's in front of the window, and all of a sudden you're inspired, right? And all of a sudden you're doing that thing, right? You're still going to be you. Those planets are still going to be those planets. They're just put in different areas of the room. So they're just kind of being activated in different ways, appreciated in different ways, living out in just a different location. There you are. Awesome sauce. Lovely mystic rectangle and all. And that yod, that 6th house yod, talking to animals. So awesome. I love it. Okay. Your Jupiter midhaven, my goodness. Yeah, that's like literally the best place you can be. Yeah, it's like amazing. And you have that Jupiter with that lovely mutual reception going on. So that's a good Jupiter, right? I don't want to throw too much technical jargon out there.
Yeah.
It's like the type of home that you think of with a sun icy line is very much like keeping a warm fire and being happy within the home, and very much like all of those sun things, feeling like you belong, right? Feeling like you have vitality, feeling like you can go, feeling like you can do, feeling like you can be yourself within your home, is really a lot of the stuff that happens. Now, the IC point, as we can see here, it's the letters IC that's up here in the 5th house. It moved when I moved the cursor, but it's up here in the 5th house, right? That actual point indicates where that's the lowest point in the sky at your birth. Like the sun was at the exact lowest point in the sky that it could be through Ireland at your moment of birth. So there is a very strong, deep connection to the land because of it. Very spiritual too, because you are a Pisces.
And just to validate what you're saying, like when I went to Ireland in 2017, I just spiritually felt so connected there. It felt like home. It was cozy. It was warm. Like I felt like I could live there. I've wanted to go back every single day since I've left. And so like her bringing up this chart has just been confirmation of that. And like whenever I think about leaving and moving, it's like Ireland's at the top of the list. So this just didn't surprise me at all.
I don't know. I'm looking at this now. It's so like I always just want to drop in and start reading, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, And now I'm like getting like full lit up that like, oh my gosh, you're supposed to raise your kids here, right? Your IC's in the 5th house here, right? Like go. Like I'm
hear
like
that,
excited. Yeah, I'm so excited for you. For just, yeah, whether you permanently relocate or not, this is a sort of spiritual home for you, for sure. It is a place where you can feel connected to with your children. And then that Jupiter on the midheaven, right? Super like really one of the most positive like career places you can be. Yeah, I still support you in this area. Just putting it out there.
Me too.
Also, there's like, you can do activations, like you mentioned, talking about going there like with like a group, right? That's one way that like, let's say you can't permanently relocate to the location, but you can still, by traveling and visiting there, have a lot of like career activated stuff come through.
You got to see Jennifer in action reading my chart. This is so fun and so awesome. So you can kind of see how, you know, if we do go to Ireland on this trip, how those stories might be activated. You know, if I do move there, you know, with my kids, you know, it could be really positive. And, you know, that's good information for me to have. I can look at this relocated chart and you can see it shifted from my original birth chart. It doesn't look the same. So that can give me an indication. We would spend a whole session on understanding what that means. As with all astrology techniques, there's a lot more nuance to this than just reading the planetary lines.
It's going to be very specific to your natal chart, and a lot of the free sites, they don't, they give general, basic, generic explanations. They don't go based on the conditions of the planets in your unique natal chart. There are a lot of other things. There are Paran lines, there are latitudinal lines that you can't see. You're not going to get the full picture of the relocated chart underneath, for one thing. It doesn't have a measuring tool, right? So you can't get specific. You're going to want to make sure that you have a measuring tool to know how it, like if you're on it or if you're off of it.
And I think that's why it's so important to go find a professional astrocartographer, because they're going to understand those parents, they're going to understand those aspects, they're going to understand how to relocate your chart.
Especially if you're considering actually taking that move and relocating permanently to a location because of the astrocartography, you absolutely want to consult with a professional first. You want to ask them important questions like, are you consulting with the relocated chart? Are you looking at parans? Those types of things.
So next I want to get into some real life stories so you can just see some examples of how astrocartography works.
Okay, so I was actually going to use, I have Johnny Depp's here. He's got a really good example of the moon IC line. Perfect. Alrighty then. So there's his chart and then his map. First of all, and this is one of the things too I'd like to mention too, that a lot of times if people have overseas connections, you can see it in the birth chart before you even get into the natal chart, right? Where he's got Jupiter in the 9th house, right? I don't know too much, but I know that he was married to a French woman. He actually bought, and I was not aware of this, but he actually bought an entire town in France.
What?
Yes, there's like a whole story behind it. You can look into it. There was like an article. My friend and I were doing research for this collaborative podcast we're doing, where we're doing like different examples of different lines. And for the moon IC, we used him, and he apparently bought an entire town that he basically in France, like a countryside town. And he has the moon on the IC here. So the moon on the IC is the quintessential home line. A lot of people will settle on those lines. What's interesting to me about his example too is that he's got the moon in Capricorn, and Capricorn does represent the father, right? And the moon is very much that mothering, nurturing aspect, and his kids are from France, right? He did settle here. He did have a home here. He did essentially, I guess, as much as he was able to be around, raise his kids here. And then even furthermore, bought an entire town here. With the IC point in the 4th house, when the IC point's in the 4th house, it very much does represent also property, real estate, the actual land beneath your feet. Like everything holds up here. And I'm assuming also that this town was probably rather old, right? Like a lot of things in Europe, it's probably, it has history. It had history, and Capricorn does also have those significations, right? As being Saturn ruled of things that are older and have time and weight attached to them. And yeah, I just thought it was a good example to kind of show how these things do show up for people, whether they're even aware of it or not.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna happen to you anyway, whether you book the reading or not, if it's meant to be, right? So there's actually a way that you can use astrocartography if you have a close to accurate birth time, but you don't know if it's the correct birth time. Let's say there's speculation about whether or not you were born at a certain time, right? First of all, you do definitely, if you are getting a professional reading, you want to make sure that you have an accurate birth time, which if you don't, you can consult a chart rectification specialist. But it really only works if it's like a few hours off, right? If you don't have the time at all, it doesn't really work. But if it's within a like close time range, you can kind of play with it. There was like an interview that surfaced with him, and he was talking to like, I don't think she was an astrologer, maybe just someone, but they were talking about astrology, and they were talking about rising signs, and he said that his rising sign was disputed, right? In his family, like one family member said he was born at this time, and the other one said this time, and he was like, so he wasn't sure if he was a Gemini rising or a Cancer rising. So I was like, this is interesting. Let me look up his story on Wikipedia and let me play with the different charts and see what is going on for him. And I think for sure he is a Cancer rising, and the reason is because the Sun MC line is called the fame line, right? And this is one of the ways that's like great example, great astrocartography example, because his Sun MC line runs right around New York City. And that's where he had his break. That's where he got into acting. That's where he became known, all of those things, right? And his sun is also in Aries, and the sun is exalted in Aries, right? So it's a good place for him to be. Yeah, so the Sun MC line is many times called the fame line, right? It's very much like if you want prominence, if you want recognition for your work, career success, and visibility, the Sun MC line is great, right? This kind of shows you, I feel like that has to be the time based on this, right? It kind of shows you how you can play with it. Like if you've had an experience in a place and it's been a certain way, and you put those times in and you see, which line makes more sense in this location, right? But it is a way that you can use astrocartography as a rectification tool, which rectification is the art of locating a birth time when you don't have one or know one.
There's not one perfect place to live. You really want to travel to these places before permanently moving, if that's like one of your goals. And ultimately, you want to trust your intuition before moving there.
Some people want to have everything. That's not life, right? Like that's not, and also, you can never grow like that. You can never learn, you can never experience, right? And, so many of the difficult things that happen to us in life are sometimes really awesome opportunities for growth. So I find if you're really just trying to avoid anything difficult, it's just not the same, right? And plus transits are always going to be transiting, right? Sometimes people go to specific places during a hard transit, and we'll look into that, right? Because they'll be like, this was great one time, but it wasn't this time. Or like, they'll be like, I don't know why they're like, I feel called to go back, but I had a terrible time before. Like, why is that? And we'll look into it. I'll look at the time they were there. And a lot of times they were just having a hard transit.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer, so much. This was so enlightening. I hope you all learned so much from this. And where can people find you, Jennifer, if they want to book an astrocartography, cyclocartography? I know you do so much more than that. Where can they find you?
So I have, my website is globalcitizenastrology.com. I have Instagram as well. It's Global Citizen Astro. It's at Global Citizen Astro. So I also have a podcast, a YouTube channel, the Astrocartography podcast, with my friend who also does this kind of work, where we do a lot of research-based examples, like historical figures, celebrities, and look at their lines and charts and draw comparisons and see what happened to them there in those locations. So research around that. We're going through like each line, like we're working on an episode per line, right? Where we kind of go in depth, talk about the line, what it means, what it could mean. And then we go through examples using examples of historical figures and celebrities and that kind of thing. I actually do really niche in a lot of ancestral stuff as well. So I do go deep if you're interested in that type of thing with the astrocartography and finding those places. I also do a past life lens as well if you're interested in that thing and like finding locations. I do offer those kinds of readings, right? Ancestral and past life stuff using the maps. So those are some other type of offerings that I have along with just the basic locational astrology. Yeah, and then I do also regular natal chart readings in addition to, if you want to start at the basics, right? If you just want to have like an understanding of just like you first, right?
If you feel called to working with Jennifer, absolutely go do that. And do you want to share your code too, right?
Oh yes, I do have a discount code if you're interested in the software and Astro Gold. It's Global 10, and that'll get you 10% off. And it's great, especially for that relocated chart feature, right? So if you're interested in seeing how those locations can shift for you, I definitely highly recommend that software for that feature. So remember that you can book with Jen. I will link all of her stuff down below. She's a fantastic astrocartographer. So whether you're thinking about moving or traveling, or maybe just trying to understand where you're living a little bit better, you can use astrocartography to understand your planetary lines and where you're living or where you want to travel. Let me know, you guys, if you want to see any other astrology modalities. I love astrology right now, very obsessed with it, and I'm definitely interested in covering more. Feel free to check out my playlist of all the different kind of intro astrology stuff that I've been creating, especially if this is like the first one you're coming to. I have an intro series on it. But thank you so much, Jen, for joining us here. Be sure to follow and subscribe to her as well. Remember to leave any comments that you have down below for us, any questions that you have. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one. Alrighty, bye.